everyone, and welcome to my first video of 2020. I took a kind of unplanned hiatus from filming videos because December just ended up being a really hectic month, and then the last week I actually ended up getting really sick, so I wasn't able to film all of the end of the year videos when I wanted to. So January is basically just going to be completely made up of end of the year, beginning of the year videos, so I hope you like that kind of content because that's all you're getting this month. So I thought, what better way to kick it off than with my December wrap-up. So like I said, it was a pretty hectic month, so I only ended up reading 4 books, which is not as much as I wanted to, but what can you do? So jumping into some statistics, 2 of them were a part of a series and 2 of them were standalones. One was a horror, one was contemporary, one was a thriller, and one was a classic, so we were pretty all over the board with that one. 2 of them were adults, one was YA and one was middle grade. 2 of them were 4-star reads, 1 5-star and 1 2.5 star. And as you know, I like to go over the years that they were released. So one was released in 1977, one was 2018, 2014, and then 1865. One was released in 1977 and 1865, so depending on what you consider to be a classic, you could technically say that I read 2 classic books this month, but that's up to your own interpretation. First book that I finished in December, I actually read most of it in November, but I actually got around to finishing it in December, so it barely counts as a book this month, but it is The Shining by Stephen King. This book took me probably 2 months to read through, and I don't know why that is because I genuinely actually really enjoyed this book and I gave it 4 out of 5 stars, but I was in just a weird reading slump where every single book that I read, it took me 2 months or a whole month or many weeks to read through, and that was a really strange reading experience for me with all those books because usually it only takes me a couple days to read a book. But yeah, this took me almost 2 months to get through, which sounds like I didn't enjoy it, but I genuinely did. I was actually pretty nervous to read this book because so many people have pretty bad things to say about it, especially people who are fans of the film, which I definitely really enjoyed the film, so I was really nervous going into this because I know that they are very different, and Stephen King himself was not a fan of the film, so I thought there's probably no way I'm going to enjoy this book, but I actually almost enjoyed it more than the film, especially because the endings are very different, and I think the ending of this was actually a lot better. There was a specific scene at the end, which I'm not going to say what it is because I don't want to spoil it, obviously, but there was a scene between Jack and Danny at the end of this book that wasn't in the film, and I really wish it was because it really just added depth to their characters, and I really loved that. There were also these magnificent, hedge animals in this book that, came to life and moved around, and I really wish that would have been in the film, but I guess back when it was made, it probably would have been too expensive with, the CGI or whatever technology existed at that time. Yeah, I actually really enjoyed this book, and while it is kind of different from the film, it does have the exact same sort of atmosphere to it, which is what I really love about it, and I also just love the depth of the characters in here. I think they're really well done. The only reason I didn't give it a full 5 stars, and is the downfall of most other people when reading this book, and it usually causes it to be DNF'd by a lot of other people, but it is a very, slow story. It's very slow. There's a lot of mundane tasks that go on in this, but I really enjoyed it just because of the atmosphere of it, so I didn't mind lingering in scenes a little bit longer, but I know that a lot of other people didn't like that. So 4 out of 5 stars for this book. I did really enjoy it. I picked up Snow in Love, which is a collection of 4 short contemporary romance stories. So this is by Melissa De La Cruz, Nick Stone, Amy Friedman, and Casey West, and they're all set during the holiday season. And what's really good about this novel is that we have some that follow Christmas, and then we have some that also follow Hanukkah and stuff like that, which I think is really left out of literature, so I really like that represented in this book. That being said, this was my 2.5 star read because, frankly, short stories just aren't my thing if they're not thriller or horrors, and that's because it takes some time for me to either get into a story or to get connected to characters. I can't do that in the amount of pages you get in a short story. I need more time than that, so I ended up landing on 2.5 stars for this, but that was definitely it's me, not you kind of situation. But I did still think the stories were really cute, which is why I didn't give it a lower rating. So yeah, I would recommend this if you like short story collections. during the holidays. I then picked up another short story, but this was my exception because it was like a thriller / horror, and that is The Grown Up by Gillian Flynn, or Gillian Flynn, I'm not really sure how to pronounce her name, sorry. This is an adult thriller short story. It's only about 62 pages, and I'm really weary about telling you anything about the plot. One, because it's a thriller, and I feel like you should always go into those blind, but two, because it's a short story, so I feel like anything I say would just basically be a spoiler. But what I will say is on the back it says, "You like ghost stories?" I don't know if you can even read that, but that's what it says. And yeah, I gave this 4 out of 5 stars. This was really good in the weirdest way possible. It is definitely an adult story because it has many adult themes to it, so I would not recommend this for younger readers, but it was very interesting. I have a hard time putting my thoughts into words when it comes to this story, but just know that it was very good. The only reason I didn't give it a higher rating and I settled on 4 stars instead of 5 was because I really did have a love-hate relationship with the ending. So on one side it was like, oh my goodness, I did not see that coming, like what's going on? And then on the other side I was like, but I want to know what happened. How could you leave me hanging like that? So I was just kind of torn with the ending, but overall I would definitely recommend it if you like thriller or even kind of horror stories. So yeah, 4 out of 5 stars. I'm definitely interested in picking up Gone Girl now after reading this book. Then the final book that I read in December and that I closed 2019 with is Alice's Adventures in Wonderland by Lewis Carroll. This was a reread for me. At this point, I don't even know how many times I've reread this book. It probably has to be 6 or 7 at this point. But I read this particular edition with illustrations by Camille Rose Garcia. I absolutely love this edition because the illustrations are so beautiful and they like fit the theme of Alice in Wonderland perfectly. Like, I feel like they just capture it really well. Here's another one of the illustrations. So yeah, I of course gave this 5 out of 5 stars. This is one of my all-time favorite stories, so of course I could not rate it any less than that. And I will probably reread it again this year, just sticking with the tradition of reading it every year around Christmas time. So yeah, those were the 4 books that I read in December. As per usual, leave me a comment down below and let me know if you've read any of these books and what you thought of them. I'd love to discuss them with you in the comments. And yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe if you haven't already, and I will see you in my next one. Bye!
You hear that, Samson?